And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And the IPCC, they had this meeting in Tokyo in Japan over the last week or so, and a lot of leaks out of it that we'd been sharing with you on the air. I believe the final report is out. Dr. Brenda Eckwurzel is with us, a senior climate scientist with the Union of Concerned Scientists. That's UCS, as in Union of Concerned Scientists, USA.org, UCSUSA.org. And Dr. Eckwurzel, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being with us. Tell us, first of all, what's the state of the report, in this IPCC report? What type of report is it, and where does it fall into the grand spectrum of IPCC reports?
Well, your reporting right now is extremely timely because it was just hot off the presses. The government-approved version of the summary for policymakers for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, their second report, which is dealing with the impacts in regional breakouts all around the world. And so all the governments of the world that are part of the UN process to create this report, this is the summary that they want the most, and they pay careful attention to every single word. And so this was just released. And so your broadcast is very timely.
Great. I noticed over the Financial Times today that apparently there's one of the economists and one of the climate scientists who are both on the panel and wrote different pieces of it. One is unhappy with the work of another, and some groups are using this as a wedge to say, oh, wait a minute. Are you familiar with that?
Well, there's always controversy around the release of these reports, in part because they keep saying the same thing, but with more and more evidence with each iteration of the report. The first reports were this is the fifth assessment report, and the changes that we're seeing are that climate change is getting worse, and the impacts are happening faster than some scientists had even expected for some regions of the world. What's different about this report is it really elevates the issue of communities around the world that aren't waiting for governments to take action. They're making decisions locally at the state level, the city level, community, regional level, and trying to cope with climate change and making decisions on how they can make their communities more resilient.
Yeah. I earlier on the show, I characterized it as, 15, 20 years ago, the IPCC was saying, hey, we think we've got a problem. And then 10 years ago, they were saying, there is a problem, and probably in the next generation or two, we should do something about it. Then 5 years ago, they're going, we got a problem that we need to talk about right now. And now this report that just came out is sort of like, hey, guys! And so
exactly.
So essentially, what are the conclusions of this report?
Well, one thing is that as we know, as you alluded to, climate change is already ugly. And how much uglier it gets really depends on the emission choices that we make. In fact, one of the best adaptation, shall we say, options of reducing the risk from climate change is to reduce the heat-trapping emissions that are accelerating the pace of sea level rise, are causing the drought situation in California to be exacerbated, the wildfire risks in the Rocky Mountain West, the sea level rise facing Bangladesh and parts of New York City and New Jersey that deal with very powerful storms that come battling in from time to time during the winter season or during the hurricane season. And so these are the issues that we're trying to adapt, cope with the risks. At the same time, the impatience is growing greater for doing something that is very, very important, which is reducing our heat trapping emissions.
Right. And yet at the same time, while we're the House the Republican-controlled House, and I realize you're not political, but I'm going to politicize this, or at least say this. While the House of Representatives had no problem passing an energy bill that continued to provide billions of dollars in subsidies to the fossil fuel industry, they weren't even subsidies; they were tax credits and tax breaks to the wind industry, expired at the end of last year, at the end of December. And the leadership of the House of Representatives has been unwilling to bring this up at all. And so we've got a serious alternative to fossil fuels. I mean, 20% of the power generated in Iowa and Texas now are from wind power, a serious alternative to fossil fuels that has just completely stalled out as a consequence of a failed political process. What do we do?
I would say that it's interesting how many communities are making a down payment on emissions reductions. There are some regions that are saying we don't need um, at the highest levels of international agreements or at the nation level. We can start in our region. For example, there's already a cap on electricity emissions, and from trade in the Northeast U.S. and the reinvestment of the money that's made to do that is invested in energy efficient options in those regions. And the studies show that the jobs and the economy of the states that really were leading this are doing better than other states that didn't reinvest in the energy efficiency. We have a cap on emissions, economy-wide cap in California. We are seeing regions that are taking steps to make their emissions reductions a serious down payment. And in the United States, we do emit a lot of emissions, so these are starting to make a down payment. The problem is it's not fast enough. And as a scientist, I do get a little impatient we bring more and more evidence to the table, and yet as nations, as a practical course for the future, we keep choosing the riskiest path forward. As you say, we are not reducing our emissions, and we're increasing the risk.
But that riskiest path is the one that is, over the short term, the most profitable for the people who have already amassed enormous wealth and political power.
And have received subsidies since the first oil wells were discovered.
Since the days of Colonel Drake in 1856 in Titusville,
exactly.
Pennsylvania. So, all right. So we need to pay attention to this. What are there any specifics of this IPCC report that we should be looking at? We had. There are some outlier scientists who are very concerned, and there are some mainstream scientists who are very concerned. They're not. The outliers are people like Guy McPherson, who is saying, we have initiated so many positive feedback loops, like the Arctic melting, that is going to lead to the release of tundra and undersea ice, under ice methane. That the cake is baked. Humanity's screwed. We should just think of it as hospice. Eat, drink, and be merry because we got 40 years. I don't think that we're there, but we had Michael Mann on the show last week, and he said we will be at that point in 25 years and 26 years if we don't start doing something right now. Does the report speak to those kinds of basically end-of-the-world scenarios?
In some regions of the world, there are some real concerns. The report really highlights some of the concerns to agriculture. For example, some of the African agricultural regions or regions of Southeast Asia that are flooding, as well as regions of the U.S. that are experiencing coastal sea level rise. But with the food, coming back to the food, it's really important. It affects all of us. If a part of the world is not able to feed their population with the food that they're not able to grow locally, then that affects some of the regions of the world that are able to grow food, and that affects prices everywhere. And for example, think about this. The corn, its optimal production rate and reproductive rate, if you go above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, you have precipitous fall off of corn reproduction. That's not that hot. And you think about some of these regions that are going to be above that temperature for many, many days in the summer season that you may be growing your corn crop. This is seriously a concern for world food supplies. And this is something that the report had a special focus on, and I'd say really brought to the fore.
That's interesting. And then you look at Tunisia, Egypt, Syria. All of them had crises following spikes in the price of wheat as a consequence of a failed wheat crop. Remarkable. Dr. Brenda Eckwurzel, Senior Climate Scientist with the Union of Concerned Scientists, UCSUSA.org is the website. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great to see you again. We'll be back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And the Union of Concerned Scientists, one of the great organizations that has been fighting the good fight for all the way back to the days of old John Goff.